Hey, everybody.
Hi,
Hey, welcome,
everyone.
everybody. Hey, we're all waving to you. We have you all muted. So as we're opening up, why don't we have everybody put in the chat where you're calling in from? I know we have people coming from all over, and we appreciate you so much being here. And we're so looking forward to hearing what Simon has to say. So just to kick it off, I'm Molly Hermes. I'm the co-leader of Commit to Democracy, along with the heart and soul of Commit to Democracy, my partner, Linda Carmen. Linda, I'm turning it over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Linda Carmen. I co-lead with Molly, Commit to Democracy, and we're just so excited to have you here today. I think Molly already said this, perhaps. We did mute you, but if for some reason you got in without your mute button on, if you could mute yourself, that would be great. How wonderful it is to see some of these faces I haven't seen in so long. It's so great. What a wonderful, wonderful day to be in the neighborhood with you. So it's lovely. I think as we have our wonderful guest with us, which we're going to introduce in just a few moments, Simon Rosenberg, but we were going to do a couple of things as we let more and more people into the room. We've had a tremendous response to this event, and so we want to give just a few moments so no one misses the wonderful presentation we're about to hear from Simon. So I'm going to share my screen, and Molly's going to open it with just a little bit of a pat on the back. Oh, sorry, wrong side. A little pat on the back session. We just want to remind you, we all stood up for democracy and we won, and we need to keep on winning. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Molly, who's going to just remind us all how fantastic we are and how much we've accomplished.
Okay, great. So again, I'm Molly Hermes, for everybody who's come in, who's new. And we did an awesome job in the 2022 cycle. We sent over 150 million texts to voters. Yes, we did. We have an awesome text team. We called 100,000 voters in 9 states. We wrote 600,000 postcards to folks in these 9 states. We knocked on 2,000 doors in California. And we personally trained 400 new volunteers on phone banking. And we welcomed 1,500 brand new members to our Commit to Democracy family. Now, we did not stop in 2022. We're here in the quote off year, but we are working as hard as ever because we know that we have to keep working to win in 2024. So we started out with this Wisconsin race. We wrote 26,000 voters in Wisconsin, and we made 100,000 calls. 1,000 calls to Wisconsin voters. And I'm sure that all of you also called on your own, so that number is probably higher, but we keep rocking it. Right now, we are informing and educating voters in the state of California about what their Republican congressman is not doing and what Democrats are doing. We are writing to postcards in CA 27 and CA 22. That is Mike Garcia and David Valadeo's districts, and we hope that we can flip those districts in 2024. We have a huge strategy. We're going to ask you to look at it on our website, but for right now, I'm going to turn it back to Linda.
So everyone, today we're just so honored to have as our guest, who we consider to be our dear friend, Simon Rosenberg. When we were scared in October of 2022, he gave us courage and hope. In 2023, after we avoided the red tsunami, he inspired us to continue the work that we are doing. And now, we are just so excited he's here today because Simon believes in the strength of grassroots organizations across this nation. He believes that information is power. And he also believed, which we are so excited about because he was right, that people would do the right thing. And now today he's joining us to tell us about his continued work to save our democracy and to make it even stronger. His new venture, Hopium Chronicles, is dedicated to the idea that information is power, and he is dedicated to groups like ours as being the empowering motive or the empowering engine of our movement nationwide. We're very grateful to him for giving voice to organizations and communities like ours. His tireless work for our country makes him a hero to all of us. And with that, I want to hand it over to Simon.
Well, thanks, Linda, and thanks, Molly and Charlie, for the opportunity to be here back with you again. There's so much going on. Let me try to spend 15 minutes or so with some thoughts on where we are and what we need to do. How about that? And then we can have a good conversation. I'll talk a little bit about why I've shut the organization down that I've been running for all these years and started this new thing on Substack called Hopium Chronicles. It's been a lot of fun. So I start all of my talks just by reminding everybody about what happened in 2022, because the performance in the midterm was extraordinary. And the more that we understand it, the more that we have time to look at the data, the more remarkable it is. It was one of the strongest midterm performances by an American political party in our history. And it came about to a great degree because of all the hard work of groups like this one. And it's one of the reasons I am so excited to be able to say thank you to all of you for the work that we did together in 2022. It really did defy history and put MAGA back on its heels. I mean, if you think about what we were told, that it was going to be, and the Republicans were going to crush us in a red wave, that they had all the energy, and that our voters were going to stay home, the exact opposite happened from that. And in the battleground states, where because of the money that organizations like this raise for our candidates and the grassroots activity, we were able to build these muscular campaigns. We outraised Republicans in the battleground states in many races by 5 to 6 to 1, something we've never done before. We've never had that kind of cash advantage. And those large campaigns were able to control the information environment, to push the early vote through the roof. We actually did better in the early vote in the battlegrounds in 2022 than we did in 2018 and 2020. It's an incredible achievement, given that we were supposed to be the ones without intensity and passion in this last election. And we actually gained ground in Arizona, Colorado, Georgia, Michigan, Minnesota, New Hampshire, and Pennsylvania. It's an incredible thing. We didn't just hold our own and hold our ground. We gained ground. We picked up a Senate seat. We picked up state legislative chambers. We picked up 3 governorships. We expanded and gained in this year that we were supposed to fall back. A remarkable achievement. And again, much of it has to do with this incredible passion of regular Americans, proud patriots all across the country, texting, phoning, writing postcards, raising money. It's this secret weapon that we have now, not so secret anymore, I think, but it's this powerful new set of muscles that we have that's allowing us to go beyond what people thought was capable, because we're changing politics through this work. But the lesson of 2022, the other lesson, is that where we didn't run these big muscular campaigns, when we weren't able to control the information environment and push turnout, we fell behind, right? We underperformed in California and in New York and Texas and Florida. And so the admonition there, the warning, is that we need to start making sure that we not just build these big campaigns, but that we contest the information environment 24/7, 365. They're louder than we are. They have more capacity to push their agenda and bully the media into responding to their daily arm waving and outrage machine that they've created. And we have to get smarter. We have to contest the information environment more aggressively. That's why what I talk about as we head into 2023 is we need to get louder. We need to become information warriors for our democracy. We have to close that gap with Republicans. And we're going to do it through new organizations like Midas Touch and Resolute Square and Courier Newsroom and Deep State Radio, and adding to things like Pod Save America and Daily Kos. I mean, we already have these organizations, these media organizations that are innovating, pushing our message out outside of the campaign environment, right? 24/7, 365. But I think the thing that we should be thinking about is my experience in the war room 30 years ago. So let's reimagine the war room from being 20 sweaty kids drinking Red Bulls, right? Producing videos, to 2 or 3 million people getting up every day, right? Learning, spreading the good news about Democrats to their networks in whatever way they're comfortable. In the way that people write postcards and text and phone, there are ways that we can reach out to our networks every day. And imagine if you reach 10 people every day and 2 million people were doing that. That's more than Fox News reaches. And we can close the gap. I think the key to closing the gap with Republicans on loudness in the next 2 years is going to be all of you, the power of the grassroots turning on every day, not just around elections. And so a lot of what I'm doing and talking to groups is challenging us to understand that we have, as good as we've done, we've got this other thing we need to do in order to be successful in 2024. And to me, this year, the most important issue, the area of engagement that matters the most in terms of loudness and pushing our arguments into the American people is around the economy. I mean, for those of you who've seen this presentation I do called With Democrats, Things Get Better, since 1989, there have been 48 million jobs created in America. 46 million of them have been created under Democratic presidents, basically all of them, right? We've had 3 consecutive Democratic presidents see strong job growth, GDP growth, lower deficits, American progress. We've had 3 consecutive Republicans who brought recession, spiraling deficits, and American decline. We should work this year together as a family, all of us, millions of us, to tell the story that when we're in power, things get better. When they're in power, they don't. And to create this fundamental contrast between the good that we do and the struggle that they have in governing. And I think if we can do that, particularly because we're going to be having a big economic debate this year because of the debt ceiling, and get us into positive territory in the economy, it will be the single most important messaging narrative opportunity that we have this year. If we can get into positive territory in the economy, which is the only area of strength that Republicans have, then we can take away one of their advantages, and it will make it much more possible that we have the kind of election that we want to have in 2024. And we know through polling, the work that Navigator does, which I recommend, is a polling outfit, a Democratic consortium that produces public polling every 2 weeks. They've tested and shown that if we inform voters about our economic record and what Joe Biden's done, we can get up into positive territory. So this is a doable thing. This is not a pie in the sky kind of thing. And I'm producing a lot of content that helps people understand this basic economic data to be able to make these arguments more effectively. But the other thing I think we need to do this year, in the off year, is to be thinking about looking at them and how ugly they are, and how unattractive they are, and how dangerous they are, and recognize that they're ceding geographic and demographic territory to us. They're abandoning some of the playing field, and we need to go claim that political real estate. And the way that I'm arguing that we need to do this is what I call get to 55. We have to expand our coalition, grow our vote, and go from the 51% that Joe Biden got up to 55% nationally. And if we can do that and win this election by 8, 9, 10 points, I think we can break the back of MAGA and not have this incredible fear that motivates all of us that, if we stumble in this election, we could lose our democracy, right? We have to do something to fundamentally change that reality. And I think we have it within our power to do. We got to 55 or better in Colorado, in Pennsylvania, in New Hampshire, we got to 54. We just got to 55% in Wisconsin. Donna Deegan, which is a race I hope some of you will take a look at in Jacksonville, Florida, is that in the most important poll taken so far is at 54% in what is the largest city in Florida that has a Republican mayor. I mean, winning on May 16th in Jacksonville, Florida, in Ron DeSantis, Donald Trump's home state, will be a huge sign of this continued momentum as we take back more political terrain from the Republicans. To me, the most important part of getting to 55 would be for the National Democratic Party to launch a youth voter registration drive this year. We know that young people vote for us the most in our coalition, and they are the most Democratic, but they vote the least. We can change that. We have the resources, the capacity to increase youth turnout. And what's really important to recognize, you often hear people say, well, young people don't vote. If young people don't vote, that's our fault. It's not their fault. We have to create a politics that makes it more attractive for them to participate. And I think you're seeing now through the protests in Nashville and all around the country that this young generation, we know this from polling, is the most socially engaged generation in modern American history. More so than millennials. This is a generation that has been scarred by gun violence and by COVID, by vaping, by social media, the destructive social media. They're ready to go to work, and we've got to invite them to our table and do everything we can to bring them along. If we can get the youth participation rates up just to the general population rate, not even above their population rate, we can increase our performance in this next election by between 4 and 6 points nationally. That's the enormity of the opportunity in front of us. Next, 2 more points, and then I'll turn it back to the ABLE team running this, is that, I talked a little bit about contesting this information space. I want everyone to know that we really are in a time where we have to have a greater consciousness about sort of what I call the information war. And Twitter, anyone who follow Twitter, I mean, Twitter has been my primary way of political engagement. Twitter is melting down in front of our eyes. And we're going to have to work together to not only get louder, but to build new organizations and new capacities like the ones I was describing earlier. And it's what I'm doing with Hopium Chronicles. I've moved to Substack. I am really encouraged that Substack is part of what's going to come next. It's a very capable platform. You can use audio and video. You have direct relationships with lots of people. I think it's going to be part of the solution. But we also have work to do in Washington and across the country in legislating to make sure that we restore greater information integrity to our discourse. Our discourse in this country has been so degraded and so polluted by right-wing bullshit, frankly, and all that they bring into our discourse every day, that we've got to fight it now across the spectrum. I've become convinced that this is also a very big job for us together over the next few years. And I certainly, using my years of experience, my base in Washington, my legislative background, I'm going to be working on this much more. But it's why, Linda, you asked me to talk about why I've gone to Hopium and shut down NDN. I did it in part because I felt I needed to fight in different ways. And I was running a C3 and a C4, and there's limits in speech in 501c3s and C4s. And I needed to be freer, to be more partisan, to be more aggressive, and to also experiment myself. I was asking other people to get louder and be more effective in communicating. I needed to do it myself. And that's why I built Hopium. And all of you should subscribe. It's free. If you want to pay, that's fine. But the daily communication that comes out, the events that we do, they're all free and open to the public. Finally, I want to make a pitch, as I said, for Donna Deegan, who's running in Jacksonville, Florida, pro-choice, former television anchor, 3-time breast cancer survivor, become a community leader, philanthropist, five generations of her family have been in Jacksonville. She's leading in the polls, and it will be a huge victory for us to take away Florida's largest city from Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump in the middle of this election. It's also important because I get asked all the time, what's the road back in Florida? How do we get back to where we were and make it a competitive state again? The answer is by electing people like Donna Deegan to office in Jacksonville, who will immediately become a powerful statewide leader for the Democratic Party. I've gotten to spend time with Donna. I have some friends who are very close to her down there. I've done a lot of political work in Florida over the years. She's A+, and I hope that you'll consider looking at her race to write postcards. The postcard system is up and running. You can text, you can phone bank. If you go to my Hopium site, I have an interview that I did with her on Monday that you can check her out. It's just 20 minutes. And she's actually debating right now, the first big debate of the elections happening while we're talking here. Let's fingers crossed for Donna. So my final point is, I just want to say thank you. I really am speaking to as many groups like this as I possibly can, because I believe that all of you, the way that you are reinventing politics through these Zoom-based organizations where you have ownership over them, it's lowered the barrier to entry. You can hang out with people like me while you're making dinner or doing whatever you're writing postcards, do whatever you're doing. This has been a revitalization of our democracy. I think we're seeing an explosion of citizen engagement in our politics. And what could be better for us than to see the kind of outpouring? People ask me, why aren't we seeing big protests and the kind of turnout you're seeing in Israel, for example, where people are taken to the streets? We've been taken to the streets over the last 3 elections, right? All of you have been postcarding and texting and phoning for years now. We've had a different kind of uprising in America, and we've had 3 great elections in a row because of all of you. Well, I think this next election, what I want you to think about as I close, is last cycle, as Linda was saying, we were down, right? We got down on each other. We were worried about our future. And I think we should enter this cycle with a very different mindset. Joe Biden has been a good president. The Democratic Party is strong. The country is better off. We're strong, they're weak. We're united, they're divided. We're a positive, constructive force for good in the world. They aren't. We are on offense and growing. They're on defense and are receding into a greater degree of extremism, pushing them even further and further away from normie voters all over the country. We're in an exact opposite place that we were a year ago. We have to grow, expand, get bigger, go on offense, take it to them, right? With confidence that we are successful. And now it's a time not to defend, but to grow as they recede back into this darker and more dangerous place. It's our obligation as citizens to do this. And the way that we're going to do this is because of all of you. And so I'm here really just to say thank you for your continued commitment to your country. It's great to spend time with proud patriots who are doing the work and give a shit about their country and are willing to take time out of their busy days to be in Zooms like this. And so thanks, everybody. It's really been an honor to be part of this. And as I was saying to Linda before, when I started talking to grassroots groups last year, I think this was one of the first groups I spoke to. And I have a vivid memory. I learned a lot in that session because, as you all know, Linda and Molly and Charlie are not very shy. And they helped teach me a lot during that session that we had last year. So thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it. And anxious to have this dialogue, keep it going. And thanks for all the good work that you do.
Fantastic. Thank you, Simon. And as always, you are incredibly enlightening and you make us so proud. I mean, I had this thing when you were talking. It did come to me. It's corny, but I'm corny. So it says, "We are Democrats. Hear us roar."
Loud and proud, Linda, right? I mean, we need to be loud and proud. Come watch on my Hopium site. There's a presentation there called "With Democrats, Things Get Better," which is a 30-minute presentation about the enormous contributions that Democrats have made here in the United States and all around the world. And it's an inspiring, it's my favorite thing. It really is the foundation of Hopium, right? Hopium is sort of came out of that presentation. And so please come take a look and you know, become reconnected to the greatness of the Democratic Party. If I can just say this one last thing, Linda, we'll open it up, is that, you know, I talk about how in my presentation, I talk about how in 1941, FDR gave the famous Four Freedoms speech. And that speech laid out that after World War II, the kind of world that we would have would not be a world of authoritarianism and dominion, where there would be some people having dominion over others, but a world that was going to be grounded and be based on freedom. And those four freedoms became enshrined in the United Nations Charter and became the foundational vision for how we were going to organize the world. And one of the things that President Roosevelt did before he passed away was that he forced the European powers to give up their colonial empires, for example, which was not something that was preordained. But in order to stay true to this notion of freedom and opportunity rather than dominion, then he had to attack forms of dominion and authoritarianism. And so the European powers gave up their colonial empires because of our country, and we created more freedom and opportunity for people in the world. And that world that FDR imagined, which has been the world that's grown since the 1940s, has created more opportunity for more people than any time in human history. This is a golden age to be alive. Life expectancies, economic opportunities, people of all colors and creeds and everything else have had more opportunity to pursue their dream, to contribute to broader society than any time in human history. There have been more people living in democracies in recent years than any time in human history. And we did that. The Democratic Party did that. That's our greatest contribution to the world. We've done a lot of good things here at home too. Civil rights movement, you know, we can go down the whole list. But we are probably an organized force that has done more good for more people than any other organized force in the history of the world. That's who we are. And that's why we have to keep fighting, because we're being called again to defend this system that we built in the 1940s, this system that's created more opportunity and more freedom than any other system in human history. It's being challenged by the Russians and the Chinese and the Saudis. And so we've got a lot of work to do. And that's why the work you're doing to preserve our democracy here is also preserving democracy all around the world. And so the stakes here are very high, which is why we're here.
Thank you.